marvellous to have these two extraordinary people here. Yara Eid, a Palestinian journalist, welcome, and a human rights advocate who's worked with international organisations such as Amnesty International, amplifies the voices from the communities under apartheid, military occupation and genocide. As a war correspondent, she reported from Gaza during the 2022 assault, and her writing has appeared in Al Jazeera, the Los Angeles Times, and other international outlets. So we're very privileged to have you here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And Stephen Kapos, a magnificent communicator and a man of great integrity. He is an artist, a retired architect, a former officer, this reminds me of my youth, a former officer of the Holborn and St Pancras Labour Party, and a Holocaust survivor who also has very, very powerful views to share with you about the Palestinian situation. So welcome. We would like you to, it's going to be a little bit reduced about time because I have to skip off at 8. I've got to get back to Bristol, but I'm going to hand over at that point to these two wonderful people who are quite funny, actually. They might do a double act. We have a rebel retired rabbi, Frank Dabber-Smith, and we have a marvellous subversive young woman who was worked with us and now she's got a job elsewhere. This is Resham. And Samir, welcome, is with the gang as well. So I will hand over now. Thank you. Over to you. Please.
My name is Stephen Kapos, and I was 7 years old when the Holocaust reached my hometown, Budapest.
It's not on.
Hello, is that better? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, I was 7 years old when the Holocaust reached my hometown, Budapest. The German army invaded in 1944, March 19, because Hungary, although formerly an ally of Hitler, was by that time proved to be an unreliable ally, so the Germans invaded. And from that point on, it was increased danger to be a Jew in Budapest or in Hungary. I had to wear the yellow star quite soon after, and I was put on false papers and hidden in various homes organized. I will come back to that to greater detail. The Budapest Jews had a kind of delayed danger by comparison to the countryside. Eichmann came in with the invading German army and immediately organized the deportation to Auschwitz of the Hungarian Jews from the countryside, 400,000 people by June 1944. And 15 members of my family fell into that statistic. At this point, before reaching to more detail about the Holocaust experience, I'd like to illustrate it with a poem by a Hungarian writer, poet, Miklós Radnóti, who was himself a victim of the Holocaust. He was a member of a work detail, a forced labor attachment to the Hungarian and German armies. These were typical kind of attachments that were organized as an alternative to deportation, immediate deportation. And they were notorious places because usually the army officers in charge were very abusive and exposed these forced laborers, virtual slaves, to all kinds of dangers, like dealing with minefields without proper equipment, and they were all starved. They were sometimes subjected to forced marches between places, so-called death marches, where any straggler would be shot. My own father was called up into one of these units, but luckily he was kind of taken out at a stage when he was still in a sort of waiting camp. And that's a story in itself, which I'll come to later. But this poet, Rodnotty, who was, by the time he was called up into these details, was a distinguished, well-known poet. That didn't count. He was still put into this forced labor camp, and he was put through these death marches. In the end, he was shot, like many of his friends on the way. After the war, they exhumed his body from a mass grave, and in his jacket pocket, they found a series of poems, some of them blood-stained. And I want to read one of them, which I think is a sort of a cry from the times of full-blown fascism, and also a warning to us, I think, not to approach the same destination again. And the title of the poem is Fragment. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when men had fallen so beneath their nature that they, unbidden, for their lust would kill, and foaming stagger in the tangles of confusion, possessed by tainted creeds, bewildered by delusion. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when spies were honored, and the murderer, the traitor, the thief were held as heroes. But he whose zeal, it seemed, lacked voice and violence, would be abhorred as if he bore a pestilence. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when he who would protest perforce must hide and gnaw his fist in bitterness and shame. That nation, in its madness, laughed and thought it good to taste such fatal horrors, drunk with filth and blood. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when to the child the mother was accursed. The woman who miscarried would rejoice. The live man envied the enthroned and wormy dead, while on his table poison thickened, foamed and spread. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when a dumb poet must wait and hold his peace, hope for the day when he might find a voice. For none could hear pronounce the dark, damned verse, but that Isaiah, master of the fitting curse. And I think it's amazing that something that is now, dates back to World War II, still seems so relevant today. And I think it is a warning that there is a route towards full-blown fascism, which we must be vigilant about, and try and do what we can on its way at the early stages. I just want to briefly say something about the Hungarian Holocaust experience. There was, between the two wars, First World War and Second World War, a period of repression by the autocratic ruler, Admiral Horthy, who came in as a Western-supported fighter against the brief period of revolutionary government immediately after the First World War in Hungary. It was put down by this, by the intervention of the right-wing detachments of this Admiral Horthy, plus Western organized supporting forces from Romania and Slovakia. And they briefly occupied Budapest, and then following which there was a period of white terror for a few years, and then the autocratic rule of this Admiral Horthy, who was pronounced a regent of Hungary, not king, because he wasn't Roman Catholic. So during that time, the Communist Party was banned, and there was latent anti-Semitism throughout that period. But also, they began to pass laws which were discriminatory and racist. The first anti-Jewish law in Europe was passed then in the late 20s. And they were very proud to have, the fascists, that is, who followed, were very proud that they were before Mussolini even. The first law against limiting the number of Jewish entries into universities, the so-called numerus clausus law. My father was a medical student, and because of this law, 1 year he had to do his studies in Prague, in a German language university there. He said he had a very nice time there, actually. And then returned to Hungary to finally qualify. This was typical of the Hungarian Jewish experience, that you could, with difficulty, but you could establish a fairly successful professional life and existence, but there was a background sort of discrimination, a social discrimination at a social level. That is until, as I said, the Germans did arrive in Hungary, and then they brought in a series of ever more severe discriminatory laws, and prohibiting use of public transport for Jews, for example, and the wearing of the yellow star, having to live in houses marked by yellow stars, and then later, you weren't allowed to own a radio, etc. And then the deportation started, particularly in the countryside. For some reason, because of Western pressure to some extent, because of the intervention of the Pope, the Budapest Jews were kind of spared as an organized large deportation. But from October 1944, the out-and-out fascist bands, the Arrow Cross, took over the power, and they were virtually hunting Jews. And it was then that we had to be in hiding, and luckily, successfully, in my case. But any survivor is just lucky, I think. It was just a question of matter of luck. Here I ought to mention, maybe not the first time, but I think the memory needs to be honored, of my friend, school friend, Gyuri Ligeti, who was caught in the raids on the net of these fascist military detachments in Budapest, arrested alongside his mother, and taken to the side of the Danube and shot. A whole group of them lined up from a height and shot straight into the Danube. And he was holding his mother's hand, and the mother sank right beside him. the fast-flowing river, the Danube, took him down very fast further, and he managed to scramble out because he was only shot in his arm. And he was overlooked and rescued by people who came down from an adjacent building and noticed that somebody was trying to get out of the river. And he survived. Eventually, I think he went to join relatives abroad after the war. But he was my desk mate immediately after the war in the primary school. And he was a very bright boy, in fact, probably the brightest in the class, but very, very nervous and obviously traumatized by this experience. Another boy, a bit older than me, who was in the same homes where I was in hiding, had a different story. The question was, how did he get there? Well, he was traveling on a train in Budapest, in a tram rather, alongside with his parents in a crowded tram, and it is a rather old-fashioned sort of trams where the driver wasn't separated properly from the rest of the carriage, and this boy, being I think around 10, 11 years old, was interested in the operation of the driver and went forward to watch him sort of use the levers standing behind him. There's a crowded tram, and at one of the stops, again, the arrow cross boarded and asked for papers. And his parents were caught in that raid and identified as Jews and immediately arrested. And in that instant, the parents had to make a decision whether to make contact with their son and therefore risk, well, almost certainly get him into the net of the arrests, or not to contact and part without saying even goodbye. And that's what they decided to do. The parents were taken immediately to Auschwitz, taken down at the next stop. And slowly, this friend realized that he was on his own, and he never seen his parents again. And this is how he managed to somehow brought him to the home where I was also in hiding. These are just two illustrations of the extremities of the Holocaust experience, beyond the immediate death in a gas chamber. And there were other similarities of extreme dangers, some of which actually rhymes with what I've seen on the screens about Gaza. For example, after the war, when we went back to check on our old home, we found at a glance when we arrived that we were homeless, because all the walls of the building, which was a reinforced concrete frame building, but all the walls were demolished by a big blast. And you could look into the building like it was a doll's house. And I thought that this was very similar to what many Gazans would have experienced coming up after an air raid from their shelter and finding that their home, which they may have built up over decades of hard work, has suddenly gone in one instant. So there are parallels. We also fell into the frontline fighting because of the location of our homes, these children's homes. And we had to relocate simply because the buildings were shot to pieces above us. We were in a location where the climax of the fight between the Germans and the Soviets happened. around the Royal Castle area, if you know Budapest at all. It's on a hilly side. It's usually a very privileged, expensive location, but that's where the last fighting occurred. And so we had to move from the buildings we were in, and several times, from place to place. And without knowing a definite safe destination, just trying this place or that. And at the same time, we were in hiding on false papers, so you can imagine the dangers. And I think this also, when I see what happens in Gaza, the way people have to leave one place for another, not knowing whether the next place would be safe at all, or what waits for them there, very similar, I think. Yeah. So I think I may be taking too much of the time, but I think that the main message is that Holocausts and genocide don't drop out of the blue sky. There is a run up to it, a gradual decline of standards, of increase of dehumanization, and it's a process. And we have to be very careful about the direction of travel we are in right now, because the ultimate destination may be fascism. And it starts with oppression and the suppression of free speech, which we have begun to experience from time to time, even here. If you look at Germany, we look at the US, we can see a greater degree of it. And in certain signs, the US is not too far from the final destination. That is a danger of it anyway. So that's really what I would like to finish on. And I think what we can do is to increase the numbers all the time of the protests and never give up on it, because it is pressure on the present government and any government, because they realize that there are electoral implications. There's nothing else that they care about, it seems. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. I think today is a very special night for me to share the stage with someone who I do not just admire as a survivor, but as a resistance fighter. You know, I do these conferences and talks a lot, but being on stage with Stefan has definitely moved my feelings a lot. That's why I was late. I was panicking. His wisdom, the way he uses his words to move people. I've seen him in protests. I've seen him in front of the police station for a hearing, you know, trying to imprison him for saying what we all believe in, that, you know, humans should be humans and that we are all human and we shouldn't kill a certain group of people just because of the way they were born or where they were born, actually. So I'd like to take this moment to actually appreciate every survivor of a Holocaust, of a genocide, of a war, of any kind of oppression in 2025, you know. It's quite weird to talk about it when we're supposedly reached a very good place with technology. You would think we're humans, would use it to, I don't know, make cats drive cars. Or I don't know, some crazy things that would be fun to watch. No, we are actually dropping bombs on people and we're killing them, children mostly. When Stefan was speaking, it was very difficult for me to listen to the story again and again, because every time I listen to him, I resonate with so much that he can talk about. But he lived in a completely different life that I grew up in. He was talking about Budapest. He was talking about the Holocaust. I'm Palestinian. I'm Muslim. I'm not Jewish. I grew up in Palestine, in Gaza. Two different worlds. Quite different, to be honest. But when you look closer, if we get closer, we're actually very similar. What we share is the oppression that's been put on us, as well as the resistance. I'd like to call it resistance blood, you know? It's in my blood. I can't just wake up one day and be like, yeah, you can have my home. You can have my backyard. Like, you know? It's never gonna happen. Palestinians have been forcibly displaced, killed, massacred, tortured, imprisoned, since even before 1948. We usually talk about 1948. I studied history. I have a few friends who do as well, who did history. We've done it even before then, with the British Mandate, with colonialism. And you know what's happening? Palestinians wake up every single day and decide, no, we're just not gonna give up. We're not just gonna get killed and give you the joy of seeing us get killed. Till the last breath, even when we're burning alive, we hold our fingers and we say, it's only God that has control over us, not you humans. So I'd like to take this space to share a small poem by someone who I really respect, but he's no longer with us, just like half of my whole world. But before that, I just want to share with you something. Rushdie Sarraj, 33 years old, a father, a journalist, and the founder of Ain Media. Yara Eid, almost 2 years old. She's my cousin's baby, first and last daughter. Ibrahim Lafi, photojournalist, 21 years old, and a brother and a best friend, my best friend. Dr. Rifat Al-Ar'ir, poet, academic. He even studied in London, you know, just like us. He was among those chairs one day. Dr. Omar Khorshid, optician. He used to do all of my glasses. I literally would go back to Gaza. Like, I would have the same pair for 3 years, never change it, just so I can go to that guy. And the list goes on and on and on. These are people who did not just cross my life, they touched it deeply. They were best friends, they were fathers, they were journalists, they were teachers, they were poets, they were lovers, they were family members. There was so much more. And as I talk, you might think I'm crazy, but I feel their presence within me. I feel them listening to us right now, hearing me. I don't know, from heaven, from somewhere better, definitely somewhere better. And all these people, what they had in common, they're all Palestinian. And they were just born in the wrong time, at the wrong time, in the wrong place. I don't like to say that Palestine is a wrong place, but this is what the world makes us feel. I grew up in Gaza. Most of you maybe know me from that. Honestly, I'm not very interesting. I'm a woman who grew up in Gaza, that's it. And that is the greatest honor of my life. It's something I would never stop being. You can take anything from me, anything, but not being Palestinian. It is the reason why I wake up every morning. It's not my job, it's not my anything. It is being Palestinian that I keep persevering. And I think when you talk to many Palestinians, they also feel the same way. It's not something personal to me. It's personal to my family, it's personal to my friends, my colleagues. Last year, it would be an understatement if it was the worst year of my life. I left Gaza when I was 16 because in 2014, long story short, some of you know it already, I witnessed a massacre in the Black Friday massacre in Gaza, and I almost died. Well, almost got killed. I don't like the word die, and I can talk to you about it later, but anyway. I survived, and the reason why I'm here today is because of that Black Friday. I put it upon myself to fight for all the children so they don't have to go through what I went through. I wasn't a hero. No one wakes up one day and wants to be a hero. No one wakes up one day and wants to become a journalist. I was 14. I saw people getting cut into pieces in front of me. I should have never seen that. I'm still in therapy for that. I'm sure Stefan has seen that, and he's still not over it. And he's much older than me and much wiser. It's all about the soul. I bet you're younger than most people I know. It's a smile, guys. And then I left and I came here. And I think about my life, and it all centers around that day and what happened that day and what I witnessed. Compared to what's happening now, the genocide now, maybe it was nothing. Not nothing, but you know, the gravity of what's happening now is something unimaginable. I never thought I would see people burning alive, like completely broadcasted to the world, and no one moved a finger. I actually lost my train of thought, but anyway, ADHD, guys. Anyway, I think the reason why I'm here today and what happened in that Black Friday is the reason why I continue to do whatever I'm doing. And these people who were killed, they all had stories. They all had families that loved them, adored them even. They all had ambitions. They had dreams. They had a life. Maybe they had some dogs. They liked cooking. They liked writing poetry. They liked dancing. I don't know. And it's quite difficult because when I do these conferences, how can I summarize my whole life? How can I fit my whole life into a 20-minute slot? How can anyone? But it is the reason why I show up for them. So this poem is by Rifat al-Ar'ir. He wrote it, and soon after he was murdered. As we speak now, bombs are dropping over my home. I lost 90 members of my family since the beginning of the genocide. No, you heard it right. 90. We Palestinians like to have kids, you know. I think it's a way of coping with the occupation. You're trying to kill us? I'll have 10 children. Try me. And you know, these people will never be here again. And that's why every single one of you has a responsibility. And I mean it, it is a responsibility. You speak English, you live in one of the most, hopefully, safest countries in the world. You have a family, you have an income, you have an education, you have a soul, you're a human, you can speak. Why don't you? If I Must Die by Rifat al-Ar'ir. If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale. Another poet that I usually perform their poetry, I just I write poetry, but I never perform it. I think I need to platform Palestinian poets, you know. Poetry is such a beautiful thing. It got me out of depression when I was 14. It's where I escaped for most of my teenage years. Mus'ab Abu Toha is a Gazan poet as well, and he's also an academic. And Mus'ab wrote this poem, and it's my first time performing it. He says, if we stay in our houses, they bomb us. If we shelter in a school, they bomb us. If we run to a hospital, they bomb us. If we move into a tent, they bomb us. If we go to a toilet, they bomb us. If we run from an airstrike, they bomb us. If we do not do any of this, they still bomb us. If we remain standing like a tree, or temporarily leave, like a leaf in the fall, they bomb us. But spring will come, and those who bomb us, will find no bombs among the flowers. We will be on the trees, bathing in the sun next to sparrows' nests. And those who bomb us, will have no sun, no place to rest, no legs to run. When I think about my family that I lost, or my best friend Ibrahim, or my colleagues, or the children of Gaza, I think they had no legs to run. They tried. But even if they have legs to run and they make it, they will cut their legs. Do you know how many amputees have been amputated just in this genocide? And I'm sorry, I'm not here to use the right perfect words because, you know, I don't need, we Palestinians don't need anyone's pity. It's actually us that give you strength. It's us that teach the rest of the world life. And this is what Rafif Ziyada said. She said, we Palestinians wake up every morning to teach the rest of the world life, sir. And she meant it. Because if you're being bombed just by walking, just by talking, just by eating, just by existing, how do you move on? How do you keep existing? How do you not give up? How do you not fall depressed? We get amputees who play football. We get people who go blind and they still write poetry about the sun and the flowers they once saw. We get people that lose speech. I was one of them, my brother as well. I lost speech for 3 months after I lost my best friend. It's trauma. PTSD, they say, post-stress traumatic disorder. It's not post in Gaza, it's continuous. As we speak, there's more than 50,000 people. 50,000! Do you know how many rooms like this? If we put these 50,000 people in it. One day, this is something I don't really talk about much, but one day I spent like 2 hours in a morgue in Al-Shifa hospital in 2022. I was looking through someone's clothes body. I'll never forget that day. I was 22, guys. You know, I used to faint when I see blood, and then I became a journalist. Like, what? Self-sabotage. Muhammad al-Kurd is one of my close friends, and he always says we Palestinians use humor because what else do we have? You know? It's a way of resisting. Me coming here is resistance. Me wearing my Palestinian necklace everywhere I go is resistance. Me wearing my kufiya from a Palestinian brand that has all of the cities of Palestine embroidered on it is resistance. It's beautiful. You should order one. It's called the Olive Tree Collective. Me cooking shakshuka and teaching every white person I know how to make mjaddara is resistance, you know? We can resist in so many different ways. And that is my call to you. Resist. Do not give up. Please resist, not for you, for them children. Imagine if it was your child. Imagine if it was your niece. Imagine if Ibrahim was your best friend. I thought I'd give up. Honestly, I disappeared. After I lost him, I disappeared. But then I had to come back stronger. Not for me, not for anyone else, but for them. So I leave you with that for tonight. And now I want to learn some wisdom. So I'm going to move the whole conversation to Stefan.
Very, very much. Would you be happy to take some questions now?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a slight practical problem. You may have noticed us scurrying around earlier on. The mics don't work. So if you have a question, I put my hearing aids in special honor, then I could repeat it back to our speakers, but if you speak really clearly, that would be perfect. Have we got, I know it's a difficult moment because we're now we're feeling fulfilled, but we're also feeling the grief, and we're very grateful to you for being here.
Thank you.
Um,
But you can't be shy. They have to resist. This is the start, guys. Come on. Like, you can't. I'll be upset. You don't want Yara upset. It's not very nice.
okay. Would you like to discuss together?
Sure, but I'd like to take a question from the audience first, and then we can go from there. Guys, the spotlight is on you. Come on, I've been speaking for like, I don't know how long, and Stefan as well. Please, we have a star, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you. I'm so sorry, girl.
Sorry. Well, my question is really, I've been thinking about the problems of the definition of gender and how it's so dramatically printed, and it's actually than that. And I hope actually before you die, you wrote the biography and kind of sentence them that the death of Gaza, the genocide, and trying to quote today. And it was removed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess, I'm sorry, not a particular question, but I'd love your thoughts on that, because it will so totally wrong, and I'm not quite sure how.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, she's asked for whoever couldn't hear is how problematic is the word genocide and how they politicize it, and you know, you either removes it from, like, I don't know, news, or from the Pope, as he said, what's happening in Gaza is a genocide and it's been removed. And I saw that. So thank you. I just have a question to Stefan. Was your first language English? No. No. Me neither. And you know, we come and we migrate as survivors, and our only weapon is education for a long time. And one of my greatest weapons is the way I speak, is having two languages and understanding the importance of being a bilingual. I hope I can learn more, but I think when I first started doing my journalism, I was in London after Gaza, like last year, like we're talking October 7th. I think October 8th or October 9th, I got a call from Sky News, and they asked me to come on their like daily show or whatever. And they were very sneaky. They chose their most senior correspondent or like anchor to interview me, to scare me away, basically. And she was very prepared, at least for them. And she didn't know who she's talking to, bless her. Still think about her from time to time. Um, and you know, I went on this live interview. It's quite daunting to be live. They could do anything to you. really? And then I was asked, like, she introduced me as a journalist, obviously couldn't pronounce my name, didn't practice that part, but anyway. And then she introduced the whole thing. And at that point, I think I lost one side of my family, which is my aunt's house, like my uncle's house, all of it. My uncle, his wife, his two children, and all of their grandchildren. And my cousin's husband and his whole family, basically. So we're talking about like maybe 100 people killed in one airstrike because they like ran away from the Barrage camp where I grew up, and they went to Nusayrat, and that's where they bombed them. So you can't, in Gaza, you run from death to death. But you might ask me, why are you talking about this and how is it related to the word genocide? So when she introduced me, and the video is on my Instagram and YouTube, whatever, it has like maybe 20 million views. And she said, 1,400 Israelis got killed on October 7th. And, I don't know, 5,000 Palestinians died. She actually did that in front of me. And I was like, she gave it to me on a plate of gold, you know? I didn't even have to try. So she introduced me, and the first thing, I didn't even answer her question. I don't even care what she asked. I was like, did you see what you did just there? Like, you're Sky News, one of the best news in the world, you know. You go to journalism schools. Maybe she graduated from Harvard or Columbia, and she went to the best school, and she spoke in English since she was like 2. And maybe she was a very smart child, so maybe she spoke at 1 year and a half. I don't care. But she decided to use the word killed for Israelis because, of course, guys, they are the better citizens. They are the white people. They are the ones with the blue eyes. I am the black-haired girl, you know, looking brownish. So, of course, they get killed, we die, we drop dead. Like, suddenly, now, khalas, bye-bye, Yara. Like, what? Of course, we don't just drop dead. We get killed. We get killed with the most precise weapons that have been manufactured in the UK, in the US, in the West. They actually get creative. They get prizes for who invents new ways of torturing and killing Palestinians. I studied this for a long time. Sometimes I'm a bit of a nerd, but only when it comes to Palestine. I studied the ways of torture they use. You would be speechless at the things you would hear and see and read about. Honestly, my mind can never comprehend the level of cruelty they use against us. And you know that this is true, and I know that they've used it in the Holocaust. It's not something new. And we say, never again. History should not repeat itself. And what is it doing? It's repeating itself, but in more grave and extreme ways. And this is an example of how words are so weaponized to paint Middle Easterns or Arabs or any people of color or black people or anyone who's vulnerable as, you know, the animal, you know, the human animals, the barbaric Arabs who kill their women, or the Palestinians who are so savage they kill Israelis. You know, Israel did not exist before 1948. Even Israelis admit that. Like, how can I even argue with that? Like, you yourself say, yeah, our independence in 1948. So this is the grave fact that this is what I want to do for all Palestinians. I want them to learn English. I want them to learn Italian, Spanish, French, whatever they need to learn to expose what's happening. Language is actually a weapon of genocide. What the BBC did when they bombed the Baptist hospital and they tweeted something 3 hours before or 3 days, it was something with 3. Anyway, they posted it and they tweeted something. Do Hamas officials hide under tunnels under the Baptist hospital? 3 days later, what happens? Israel bombs the Baptist hospital, killing 500 people in one airstrike. One airstrike. So the BBC is complicit because they don't have weapons, but they have words and cameras. And that's why they kill us. That's why Israel kills journalists. They're, I think, the most targeted profession, if I'm not wrong. I just made this statistic up right now, but I think it's true. um, you know, we've had like almost 200 journalists and counting killed every single day. They bombed a tent of journalists in was it a Shifa hospital? Or Nasser hospital? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Pardon? Mawasi, Khan Yunis. So yeah, and they bombed it. They knew who were there, journalists with their cameras and press vests. Even me as a journalist, when I was working with Rushdie, and we would be going to bombed sites, we never, like, wallahi, the first thing I learned in journalism in Gaza is the health and safety protocol. You wear your press vest, you wear your helmet. I had a very small vest, I really liked it. And you have the press car marked as press with a huge press red, press TV. So everyone knows us. We're quite famous, even to them. I swear, if you have an ant in Gaza, Israel can see it and locate it. And they still, what do? They decide to kill us in so many different ways. I hope that answers your question. I think language is really, really a form of weaponizing genocide and like enabling it. And we need to call it for what it is. Stefan, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I want to add something. I am a member of this small group of genocide survivors and descendants against the genocide in Gaza group. And we stand on the side of marches to demonstrate that not all Jews support Israel's actions, and to prove that the demonstrations are not no-go areas for Jews like it is claimed by the right wing generally. And generally we are extremely well received, and in fact warmly received. We get hugs and kisses and, really welcomed. Except last time, a person comes up to us and says, "Shame on you." So I said to him, are you a Zionist? He said, "Yes, of course I am." And I said, "Well, do you support genocide?" He said, "What genocide?" So I said, "Discussion terminated."
Mic drop.
Anyone who can see what goes on the screens and isn't appalled and isn't completely against it, has been crossing a line, as far as I'm concerned. And the question of genocide or no genocide becomes an academic question. Of course it's a genocide. And the genocide has nothing to do with numbers. My great hero, Francesca Albanese, said, it's not to do with numbers. It doesn't need one death for it to be genocide. If life conditions are removed from a people, which they are doing anyway. And she was asked, what about David Lemmy? And said, David Lemmy, is he a lawyer?
Is he?
No, well, he claims to be, but he's not really, because he thinks that it is not a genocide because not enough people are killed.
How many Palestinians need to be killed for it to be called a genocide? 50,000 not enough, yeah? 100,000, a million, 2 million, and then Gaza is obliterated. No one is alive anymore. With 2 million people. So 50,000, do the math, guys. I'm not a math girl, but...
Yeah, the other lines of the Zionists are, well, look at the history of the West and the US. You all had your enormous genocides. Why can't we have our little one? This is a kind of mad logic, which, has absolutely no validity, we all know. that is why I came to a conclusion that those Zionists who are still Zionists after what goes on, I just write them off. You can't talk to them. I think they're hopeless. And I think I have certain sympathy with the young people who were Zionists thinking that they're moving into a land without people and they're building a kind of full of kibbutz socialist version of Israel. At the beginning, you could be understood to a degree if you reacted against the Holocaust. But once you got there and you realized what was going on, and that there are people there who own the place, and you're still a Zionist, that cannot be excused.
Two at the same time.
Yeah.
One question here and then this question.
Thank you so much, Yara, for this great presentation.
Thank you.
And sharing your stories. That they were really difficult to process on these things, or because you were most of short on words right now. I wanna ask you. You said that you grew up in Gaza.
Yes.
Recently that the world got to know about what's happening in Gaza and this at the scale that we see right now, the genocide scale that we see right now, maybe did not exist in the past, or the world didn't get to see it.
Yeah.
I want to know, when you were growing up, how did you process apartheid? How did you process what you saw? As a young girl who doesn't really understand the world but trying to make sense of it, what were some of your feelings and how did you view the world?
Thank you. That's a beautiful question. Yeah.
Growing up in Gaza, how is it possible as a child to deal with, to compute, to calculate and understand apartheid with all its many ramifications, which are so inhumane? Because that was a time which was different from now, but still hellish in a different way. That's the question: is what was it like to be a child in Gaza?
Yeah.
Thank you. So sort of, what you both said just now. I also, before I ask the question, come from a region which has gone through two lots of, which is Bangladesh. 1947, there was migration, the split of India, Pakistan, British colonial injustice, whatever. 1971, which is when I came during the Civil War. Some of my family members living in these were killed by the Pakistani army. And today, I would remind, is the 110th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. I've got some friends, so I can pretty much yes. And my local MP, Jeremy Corbyn, who's been very passionate about the overthrow of the demos, he's the event this evening. So what I wanted to ask is, how is it that Al Jazeera is still able to, I always listen, that's the only news channel I still to get it. Still, they are able to, report back from Gaza. They're still there. They're down from West Bank, and it's shameful and absolutely despicable what Abbas said yesterday about, calling Hamas, And if I say something about that, I'll be seen as if I'm attacking Hamas, saying that.
Hamas supporter. Hamas sympathizer. That's the favorite word.
So what's been happening with all the restriction of freedom of expression? I've never seen this before. All the movements have been taken part in about 50 years or so, anti-apartheid, people, like my friend Lindo is here, and now every time you speak about Palestine, you're allowed to say it.
Yeah.
So we are going to say from our resistance, the solidarity and support we do from the number of demonstrations,
yes,
25, 26. That is our resistance.
Yes.
What's happening there, and we'll continue marching and demonstrating until there is peace, until there's justice, until there's an end to genocide.
Thank you.
So, did you hear that about the idea of freedom of speech? How is it possible that Al Jazeera are not allowed into the West Bank, but how are they still managing to report somehow, in some way or other, from Gaza. And we've got a Bangladesh, is your Bangladeshi history, and thinking about certain parts of Africa as well, looking back as an adult now, looking at this horror and wondering how it is happening.
Okay, thank you for two great questions. And honestly, this is my favorite kind of way to end any talk. I always like to listen and talk to others. That's my favorite thing, and that's why I'm a journalist. I love talking to people. I talk too much sometimes. But to answer your first question, I think it's a beautiful question. And my mind, when you started asking it, I kind of knew what question it was, but I had a more like twist to it. So I'm going to answer it in two parts. How did you understand growing up? Like, how did you make sense of genocide, apartheid, and the war in Gaza as a child? As I said, I was 14. The first, assault in Gaza was when I was 8 years old. It was 2008. Guys, I was a nerd. No, I'm not joking. Like, I would cry if it's raining, because we don't have infrastructure in Gaza. And when it's raining really bad, children shouldn't go to school. This is how I grew up. So when I came here to boarding school in Wales and it was raining every day, I just didn't go to class. I have a friend from school, she can attest to it. I genuinely thought, it's raining, why do I need to go to school? And guys, I was in boarding school, like school was 5-minute walk. So my house parent came and woke me up one day and I was so mad at her. I'm like, it's raining. And she's like, and? I'm like, come on, we don't go to school. She's like, under what law? I told her Palestine. She's like, where are you now? I said, Wales. And I was like, okay. That was a very sad day for me. So why I'm telling you this, I was 8 years old, I was doing my final exam. I think in grade 3, and it was an Arabic exam, and I finished my paper, studied really hard for it. And I just started getting into like creative writing. So I think I was writing this like story, and when I write, I really live in the moment. So I was writing this creative story for my exam, and they cut it short because the bombs were dropping everywhere. Yara was crying not because of the bombs. I wasn't scared. I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I need to finish my creative writing. And I remember having to go home as a child. I was 8 years old, running in the camp alone. My dad, everyone, it felt like, because it was the first I ever seen, it felt like something like chaos. I didn't make sense of it. And in that year, they used white phosphorus. So also another memory of 2008. I actually don't remember anything about my childhood. I remember that day, and I remember just glimpses of because a symptom of trauma is memory loss. And another thing I remember is my mom giving us onions, and they really smell horrible, and I had to put them on my nose because they were throwing white phosphorus. And my mom was so scared. She kept telling us, I'd rather die than get deformed, because they used a chemically banned weapon. And so I didn't understand what was happening in 2008. 2014, I was 14 years old, so a teenager. And I started making sense of it. I started asking the questions from 2008 to 2014. And I didn't get unwell after 2008. 2014, it's the awareness. Sometimes we say awareness is a curse, right? And it's the awareness that came with it. I started thinking, because of what's happening, I'm gonna lose my family. The idea of being 14 and thinking you're gonna grow up on your own was my mom was my best friend. I was really close to my family. It was so scary, and I didn't know what to do. And I think that's how I got really unwell after 2014. I had to drop out of school, even though I was the best student, whatever. And I was depressed, and I didn't know what to do. And after that, my parents nurtured me back to life. And that's when I realized I have a mission in life and I have to do it. I can't just be depressed. I'm only 14, man. And then, I have a lot to live for, right? And this is how my childhood was. But I think if I think about growing up in Gaza, I don't know if it's romanticizing life. I don't know if it's just me because I left. I don't know if I was in Gaza now, I would say the same thing. I mean, I have friends who would say exactly what I'm going to say now. Growing up in Gaza for me was the beach. was my late night trips to the beach with my father. I remember once I got a really good grade, and my father, guys, he loves great like gestures. So I had like my first proposal kind of feeling, like when I was like what 10. He went to the beach manager, like we had like cafes, beach cafes, and he told them they should open like a song for us, and they should like say that Yara is the best student, and they give us the gifts. And you know, I felt like a princess. It's my memory of my father and of Gaza. It's, you know, swimming in the beach when you're young and teaching me how to swim, or drinking mint tea with my friends, or my mom's cooking maqlube and me like going crazy for vine leaves. You know, it's all these memories. Or when I have sleepovers with my cousins. Gaza is so beautiful. Wallahi, I bet you, I will give you $10 million. I don't have it, but I will give it to you if you make me meet one person who's not from Gaza, because Gazans have a different outlook in life, which is fair enough. But give me one person who went to Gaza, who's not a Zionist or an Israeli, obviously, and who doesn't like Gaza. You know, they say, you go there, if you're gay, you're gonna get killed. No, it's not true. Ask the gays. You know, you go there as a woman, they're gonna make you wear the hijab. Like Billah Hadid, you're not gonna last one day in Gaza. Habibi, wallah, she's gonna last a lifetime in Gaza. Everyone is gonna propose to her every single day. She's gonna feel the most beautiful woman in the world. You know, we're people who love life. We are people who share love stories more than sad stories and killing and murder. We are people who have dreams. We have really good food, better than Lebanese. Fight me after. Meet me at the door after. And, you know, like, this is what Gaza is to me. So I refuse to think of Gaza as bombs, as genocide, as, you know, collapsed buildings and dead bodies. Gaza is so much more. And I hope one day we can be sitting like this, not in a formal setting. We'll be sharing mint tea together and eating knafa. Also, Palestinian knafa is the best. Guys, it was invented by us, so. And then you get to see the beauty I'm talking about. And this is only Gaza. Like, Gaza is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but what about the rest of Palestine? Can I ask a question to the audience? Who's been to Palestine here? Okay. Can I ask the man in the back, where are you from, please? You're from India. And sir, where are you from?
Italy.
Italy. India and Italy. And they've been to Palestine. You know where I'm from? Palestine. Have I been to Palestine? No. I've only been to Gaza. I haven't been to the rest of Palestine. Where did you go? In Palestine.
West Bank.
West Bank. Somewhere where most Gazans, 99%, have never stepped a foot in the West Bank. And I'm sure, like, as we speak, most of you can go to Palestine now. Maybe you wouldn't because of the situation, but you know what I mean. I can't. I applied. I got rejected. I think I'm blacklisted, guys. Put it on my CV. What an honor. But that is Gaza in my eyes, you know. And I think it's really sad when I think about the kids who were born, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or less, because they didn't see the Gaza that I saw in my eyes. They don't know the old good days. Yani, my days weren't very good, but you know, it's 50-50. I hope that answered your question. And then your question, I think Stefan can comment on it. But yeah, I remember it. And I think Stefan can mention some about the Holocaust as well, because at the time, I think in any tragedy, you want to kill people, take their voice away. Don't take their heart, their soul, kill them. No, their voice, their ability to express themselves. يعني, an example, a bad example. If a woman tries to get, like someone tries to harass a woman in the street, what is the first thing she does? She screams. Maybe she hits them, but the first instinct is screaming. It's your voice. It's calling for help. And this is what, in Gaza, everyone is a journalist. Not in a good way or a bad way. We were forced to be a journalist. You know when Shireen Abu Akleh was killed a few years ago? It is the reason why I became a journalist. And I know after Rushdie was killed, and after Ibrahim was killed, and after maybe me, I'll be killed by Israel, so many will be alive and will want to pursue journalism because they see the impact it has. There's many doctors, and they're doing a huge job because I wanted to be a doctor. That's why it's a huge shift, and it's because of the power of storytelling. I realized, I don't know, my brother can be a doctor. I'm gonna be something else that someone else cannot do, which is talk to people. And as many journalists have been killed, as many new have been born. And Al Jazeera does a really good job by giving platform to young people. So a lot of the Al Jazeera journalists are very young in Gaza, and you'd be surprised. Like we have Hind al-Khudari, we have Anas al-Sharif, we have a lot of people in their 20s being war reporters. Do you know what that means? A war reporter. Sky News Anka could never. She wouldn't last one day in Gaza. One bomb and she'd be crying to go back to London. Wallahi, I know. So it's really difficult, you know, and that's why Al Jazeera is doing a really good job. The New Arab, Middle East Eye, whoever could just platform Palestinian voices is amazing. And in London, there's like Palestine Deep Dive. They're just starting. Support them, guys. Please support them, because I really believe in independent Palestinian media. Sahat Plus also. Google them after, and that's why it's so important. So freedom of expression is something that they cannot steal from Palestinians, because if they manage to steal that, Palestine would not exist. And that is, I think, the most scary thing for any Palestinian. When they do the the media blackout, do you remember how many times they've done it? Why? Why do they kill journalists? Really, really? What? One answer. It's because they're scared of the truth. Because you guys are going to protest. Did you see when the man was talking about how much passion he has for the protests? Or when the man smiled about talking about going to Palestine? It is this that they want to prevent you from reaching. The level of solidarity, the level of love. Honestly, love, like I'm going to sound like a hippie, but love is our strongest weapon, you know? I hope that answers your question. And if you want to add anything, Stefan, about freedom of expression.
Well, I want to add.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, I want to add something about how to survive a Holocaust. I recommend to be no older than 7 years old, because you don't yet understand the dangers at that age. And I mostly understood what the adults around me went through in retrospect, and the danger I was in. I did not experience it yet firsthand. I was just doing what I was told to do. Go here, hide there, etc. To illustrate it, Christmas 1944, when we were in hiding on false papers and pretending to be war refugee Gentiles under the protection partly of the Swiss Red Cross and others, the Protestant churches in Hungary. We had an apologies for those who have heard this several times, but we were invited by the German army, who was all around us at that point, because this was just before the climatic fighting started in our area. We were invited to share the Christmas with the German army. And it was they were already surrounded by the Soviet forces, because Hitler didn't allow them to withdraw in time, but they still could. Hitler didn't care for anybody's life, really. And he threw the German contingent into the fire, so to speak, just to slow down the Russian advance a little bit towards Germany. Anyway, we were invited to this formal Christmas where a long white table was beautifully set and decorated with little twigs of fir trees and a great Christmas tree at the end of the room and a huge flag of swastika-adorned flag as well. Wow. And there we were seated, one Jewish boy one German soldier, one Jewish boy, one German soldier, all the way down. And this was a very dangerous situation to be in. But were we afraid? No. I mean, we didn't realize the real dangers of it. Unfortunately, I can't remember what the meal was, because I remember the decoration, but not the meal. No, probably not.
Maybe not.
No. A few days later, we were so cut off from any supplies that the Germans shot a horse for the local population to go and carve and get something to eat.
Is it edible?
Very good, actually. Horse meat in France is more expensive than beef.
Oh, wow. Germans had taste. I don't know.
No, it's the first time we had goulash and not dry beans and stuff. That we were.
I think he did it as a like to punish you, but then God had a greater plan.
Yeah.
Horse meat is amazing, as you say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No, it was very.
it's on them.
It was very good, very good. Anyway, I recommend it. And
Guys, dinner or me after.
but the fear was of the adults were completely scared of this situation, because the fear was that if a boy asked to be taken to the loo, the Germans would realize who we were, because circumcision in Hungary, in Central Europe, unlike in the US, was only for Jewish boys. And that would have given the game away. But we had no idea about this, didn't realize it. So anyway, so that was one way of coping, to be too young to understand. It was absolutely awful for the adults, though, all around us. And what I do remember very clearly is the sadness, the depressed atmosphere of the German soldiers, because the reason why they asked us to join them is as a kind of reminder of their families, whom they're not going to see again. Because either they were going to fall in just around the corner big climatic fight, and they were outnumbered heavily by the Soviets at that point, or taken prisoners to the gulags, and the survival rate was 10% roughly. So that atmosphere was stamped on the evening, no matter what the decorations. So that's on that one. On the question of news and journalism from Gaza, yeah. There are a few brave organizations like Middle East Eye, as well as Al Jazeera. That I know some of their organizers who are great people, and they do bring very regular reportage. I don't know how they manage to do it, but they do it. And another thing that moved me very deeply was going to several sessions of Letters from Gaza, which was organized by the P21 Gallery. I don't know if you know it, but it's a Palestinian cafe come cultural center, come shop, come everything. And they had this series of events of reading letters from Gaza as the fighting was going on, the bombing was going on. And it made me realize how similar some of their concerns and pains that you don't see on the screens was similar for them as it was for us during the Holocaust. For example, having to trust information coming from your very enemy, saying, you leave this place in 24 hours and go somewhere else which will be safe. Will it be safe? Do you believe anything that they say? And secondly, what do you do with people who are disabled? They cannot take the journey. There is no public transport. do you leave them behind? Or does the whole family stay behind no matter what? These decisions, absolutely agonizing. It's a mental torture. And my family had to go through exactly the same, our Transylvanian branch of our family. When Transylvania was returned from Romania to Hungary, and the Hungarian fascists came in and immediately threatened the Jewish population of Transylvania. In fact, well, they came to a sad end. But my family was farming. They had a reasonable sized estate, and most of their workers were Romanian. There was a mixed village where they were farming. And the Romanian, Romanian workers came to them and said, we can take you over the boundary by illegal routes that we know, by horse and cart to Romania, and you would be much safer there. Don't trust the Hungarian fascists here. And they debated with them, you know, what they should do, decided to turn down the offer because there was a very elderly, weak, ill person amongst them, a remote uncle of mine. And so they turned it down. They all got deported to Auschwitz, and only one of them came back. 15 died.
Wow.
So these are the decisions you've sometimes faced in that kind of situation. And it's amazing how Gaza and the Holocaust rhyme with each other. And I just want to mention how I hate Israel using the Holocaust as a cover for what they're doing in Gaza. And it is an outrage and an insult to the memory of those who died in the Holocaust and to the survivors.
Definitely. I think when I was young, I had to learn about the Holocaust. I don't know if we learn about it in schools, like in Gaza, I mean, or in Palestine, because you undergoing, apartheid since a very young age. But my father was a very revolutionary man. He was the reason why I got into politics. He was the reason I read, Ghassan Kanafani, Mahmoud Darwish, Karl Marx, Franz Fanon. He was a very well-read man. Is that how you say it? Well-read, yeah. And I learned a lot growing up, and I learned a lot about the Holocaust. And it's insane how many times we Palestinians get people, just random people who would come up to you and say, Yara, are you Palestinian? And I'd say, yes. And they say, so you hate all Jews? In school, some Israeli students asked me this, and I never understood this obsession of just trying to prove that all Palestinians hate Jews. And unfortunately, it goes to a lack of education, because in Gaza, the word Jewish and Israeli can sometimes be the same. So you say Yahudi, but Yahudi, the literal meaning is Jewish. So when they are saying the Jews came and bombed us, they're actually talking about the Israelis. And if you talk to any kid in Gaza and you ask them, what's the difference though between a Jewish and an Israeli, they would know. They tell you that's a religion and we have nothing against it, and they'll read you verses from the Quran that prove that we have to respect all religions. And we never had problems with the Jews or the Christians. There are a lot of, not anymore because they keep getting killed. There were many Palestinian Christians. They're a minority, but we exist, they exist. Israel will use every single excuse to cover for its Holocaust. Honestly, they will use pinkwashing, which is, isn't pinkwashing when they use the LGBTQ to talk about how Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East that allows gays to get married and have fun and la la la. And if you're in Gaza, you're going to be killed. Or they use greenwashing. Israel is the only country in the world that we plant trees. Habibi, How many olive trees have you like uprooted? How many have you just destroyed? The amount of bombs they've dropped in Gaza, wallah, if you are the biggest vegan in the world, خلاص, يعني you wouldn't make it, you know? Like, what is this obsession? And they do it with women rights. Oh, Israeli women are so, oh, my favorite guys. I have a friend called Adnan Barq. You have to like Google him after. And he's so funny. He's a Jerusalem born like guy. And he makes the funniest videos to make fun of the IDF and the IOF, the Israeli Occupation Forces. And one of the videos he made was TikToks from Israel about the genocide. And one of them was about Israeli women. They're IOF like soldiers. And they go on TikTok to just thirst trap and being like, look how pretty I am, but I kill babies, you know? So they use all these different covers. And they use, the biggest one, I think, is you're anti-Semitic. I swear, like, I don't know, have they been like just drinking milk that says anti-Semitic, you know, just use it. Like, I don't understand. These accusations, you will have it. Whether you're Jewish, I am sure, Stefan, some people have said you're anti-Semitic.
Yes.
Yes, because you support Palestine.
Or the other favorite expression is self-hating Jew.
Oh, yeah. So you see, it just covers up the genocide, what they're doing, and we have a lot in common in the way we were brought up, the way we saw these massacres, the way we were survivors. And I know that, like, honestly, yes, I am with an incredible man right here, but I know that he is just one person. There's so many stories, and it's the same thing. I am not a representation of Gaza. I represent me and maybe a few Gazans, you know, or Palestinians. I know that there's so many stories that you would listen, and I would listen, and I'd be shocked. In a lot of my journalism articles, I write for the New Arab right now. So if you check my journalism articles, I always try to interview fellow Gazans. I don't like to talk about their stories. I like to give them a voice, you know? And their stories are insane, guys. The amount of like, you know, the girls who get kidnapped in the beginning of like October last year, and they took them into Israel. One of them was my classmate. We didn't know anything about her for like 3 months. And then when she came back, she was a UN employee. She was working with the UNHCR. And then my two colleagues, Haitham Abdel Wahed and Nidal Louhaidi, they've been missing since the 7th of October. And then Ibrahim Lafi was killed on the 7th of October. And then Rushdi Sarraj was killed a few days after. And this is my organization. They're all killed. You know who's left? Me, one guy. I don't want to call his name because I'm scared for his life. And he's working undercover, you know. And Rushdi's wife, who restarted the company with us three, just us three, and I'm not even there. And you can like just imagine the level of losses. Like, I've lost both of my homes, the home I grew up in the camp, and the home that we have in the like city near the beach, which I have so many nice memories of. And you know what's the saddest thing is I lost my photo album, and they are what's left of my dad. Like all of my pictures as a little kid and stuff like that. And you know, I hate backpacks. Just fun fact, I hate backpacks. You never see me wearing a backpack. And you can ask why. Because they are triggering. They're actually triggering to me. Like, I hate backpacks, guys. Khalas, right? Yara Eid hates backpacks. Because whenever there's a bombing, you get a backpack and you put your whole life in it. Your passport, your pictures, I don't know, your toy, if you were a kid, your loved one's gift. How can I fit my whole house? Imagine, I'm a hoarder. I have so many stuff. It was always really difficult to move because my backpack was so heavy. And my brother, he's even sillier than me. He has the marbles, you know, like little kids play with the marbles. Imagine we had to walk like, I don't know, an hour on foot when we were like, he was 11, I was 14. Both of us carrying this bag. He has marbles, just marbles, like 3 kilos of marbles. And I'm begging him, please leave the marbles. And he's like, no. Till now, I talk about it with him. It's trauma. I don't like marbles either. So we have a bit of time to have few more questions. I think we'll wrap up in about 10-15 minutes. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for showing us community. Thank you for showing us love. Thank you for showing us that you're showing up for us, you know? Thank you for going to the protests. Thank you for talking about Palestine with so much love. Thank you for talking about Palestine with so much enthusiasm. Thank you for listening to me rant for 2 hours. My mom wouldn't. No, she would. But so do we have any more questions? Yes, Zab? A really good one, guys.
Interviewed both of you guys. In the last 18 months, we've witnessed over 200 journalists being killed, including our amazing colleagues. My question to Yara is, how do you navigate the silence of many of my colleagues in the industry and big news organizations who, in my opinion and many people's opinions, are silent about these journalists that have been killed?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a great question. Can we get one more? Anyone? But we want a new face. Come on, guys. You are brave. You can do it. Yes.
It's kind of two little ones.
Okay.
One is about the kind of the hideous and overwhelming hypocrisy with the disparity between the Ukraine war and the empathy and the heartbreak that we all on a daily basis can only think about the horror of the Ukraine war and the Gaza war. So how intolerable it is and what it's like for you to have to endure this constant. You know, there's nothing wrong with empathy for the Ukraine war, but it's the disparity.
Yeah.
And I teach in a school next to Grenfell Tower, and we're not allowed to mention Palestine in my school, but we fundraise for Ukraine the whole time. It gets me completely crazy.
Is it school policy? Is it school policy? Is it against school policy?
Education Minister put an instruction out to all schools in England.
Wow.
If any child wears a badge or speaks to Palestine, that we should report them.
Can they wear the Ukrainian one?
A child should be reported as a protector.
Can they wear the Ukrainian one though?
There were flags at the school. We're fundraising cakes, make cakes for Ukraine. The other thing is for Stephen, which is, you know, I never forget when all the Syrian refugees were pouring out of Syria and they were trying to get into Hungary in Szeged in the south. Yeah. And I never forget, at midnight news, I heard Viktor Orban, your esteemed president.
Not by me.
You have to live with Viktor Orban as your president while this is.
We have Abbas, Habibti.
And he said about the Syrian refugees, Viktor Orban said that they built this huge wall between southern Hungary, etc. And he said, under my administration, not even the birds will fly over that wall and get into Hungary. And I thought that was fascism right there. Not even the birds will get in. So, yeah, it's the I suppose, just the horror of the fact that whether you're a kid in school now, you can support Ukraine, but you can't support Palestine.
Yeah.
If you're in Hungary, you've got Viktor Orban, a fascist, Nazi ideas, Trump supporting.
Yeah.
In Gaza, who says that not even the birds will get in to Hungary under his administration. So it's not a question, it's kind of just an outpouring, really.
That's all right. Thank you.
The craziness.
Thank you so much. Can we just get a final question, please? Yes, please.
How the ICJ's ruling
Okay.
on the plausible case for genocide was received within Gaza.
Thank you. I will. Okay, so I'll start by Zab's question. This question is actually makes me quite mad because I remember when I first started being a journalist, I actually, because I was crazy, I was insane, I looked up international journalists and I was like learning how to report from them because I thought, you know, education here has such high standards. We are learning about objectivity. We are learning about no double standards. We are learning under the BBC, the great broadcasting company, you know, and we get lectured as little kids. About those journalists and those companies. And when I was insane then, I thought I'm gonna learn my morals from them. And then I had a very close, dear friend to me who called me insane because I was watching these journalists. And she told me that when you become a journalist, Yara, and when you're gonna report on Gaza, you're gonna see how insane you are because who you should be learning from is your fellow Palestinian journalists like Wael al-Dahdouh, like Shireen Abu Aqle, like all of these amazing journalists that are either killed or their family killed because of what they're doing for Palestine. And she became my mentor. So win-win for me. Her name is Mariam al-Barghouti. She's a West Bank journalist. Maybe you know her. She's based in Ramallah. She's an amazing writer. And she is, honestly, like, I can't even describe how brave that woman is. I love hearing her interviews. So now I don't watch white journalists. I watch Mariam, and I actually obsess over her interviews. Like I watch them quite a lot. And she doesn't shy away from just calling it what it is. You know, once we were, was it SOAS? I think it was, it must have been. And in the beginning of the genocide, they invited us and they invited another rabbi who said he is very pro-Palestine, but then didn't condemn the genocide. I can't remember his name. You can Google it. It was Yara Eid, Mariam Barghouti, and another person. And Mariam she was on Zoom. And I remember it was my first event with her. And he said something like that. And she was like, no. Exactly what you said. Conversation, what was it?
Terminated.
Terminated. She said, conversation terminated. And she hung up the Zoom. And I was like, Mariam, you can't leave me on alone. What am I going to do now? It's just me. And I learned a lot from that young lady. And she's remarkable, as so many other journalists and colleagues of mine. And I learned that your greatest power is your community and other journalists. Don't get me wrong, I am sure there are some international journalists that I know and I have met who have been doing incredible work regarding Gaza. A lot of them are Al Jazeera journalists like Zab. You know, she's not born in Palestine, she's not related to Palestine, and she does an incredible job in, you know, bringing awareness to what's happening. I also worked with like people from Palestine Deep Dive. They started, this guy started the whole company. He's not even from Palestine. You know, and there is, I hate generalizations, but yes, 99% they are horrible. 99% they are that Sky News anchor, and I'm not even gonna give her power by knowing her name. You know? Yara Eid with that anchor, whatever. But it kills me that international journalists who are good, like Zab, and I know that if we dispatch her to Palestine, she would go in a heartbeat. But she's not allowed. They've literally closed Gaza off. Like, the Holocaust was all about alienation, isn't it? It's about creating this alien world where if you go there, you're going to get murdered. Something really bad is going to happen to you. Like, what more than what's happening to Gazans? And we have brave journalists who want to go, but they're not allowed. And then we have the shitty ones that report as, Israelis get killed, Palestinians die. It's my favorite line ever, honestly. And your job is to switch off that BBC Switch it off, honestly. There is a bit of an extreme TikTok trend where they smash the TV when the BBC comes on. Donate that money to Gaza, mate. Don't smash the TV. But I get the resentment. And you know, the BBC, like, I actually call them genocide supporters. I call them for what they are. They are enablers, if not complicit, and a reason for what's happening. I don't know. I felt Scottish a bit right now. Maybe because I was talking to Zab. Oh God. Okay, guys. Think enough coffee for me. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I think we need to just platform more Palestinians as much as we can. Listen to them, hear their stories, and just turn that TV off. Switch to Al Jazeera, switch to Middle East Eye, switch to the New Arab. Switch to just journalists on Instagram. Come on, guys, it's 2025. Download that Instagram. Have fun. Not too much fun. But yeah. And the other question was about Ukraine and Palestine, the double hypocrisy and the duality of it. And another question about Urban. I don't know his name.
Him to me.
Yeah, I will. So if you want to talk about it now, and then I can go back to Ukraine.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Orban, great friend of Donald Trump, great friend of Vladimir Putin, great friend of Netanyahu.
What a fun party. Imagine them in a party. Like, we're going to go.
Do I need to say more? He does go, he represses the country internally. He's a virtual dictator now. He destroyed institutions. He placed his people everywhere in all organizations, so that it's very difficult to overturn his rule now. He goes regularly to Putin for lessons on oppression and
How to kill children 101.
yeah, and how to tilt the playing field in elections so that he always comes out on top. Well, the only good thing I can say about him is that he is a bit sensitive on the war in Ukraine, because there is a Hungarian part of Ukraine, which in the Carpathian Mountains, a section after the First and then the Second World War was attached to Ukraine, where there is a Hungarian minority, and the Ukrainian regime is just as beastly to the Hungarian minority as they are to the Russian minority. So that doesn't go down well for Orban. But that's about the only positive I can tell about him, that he protests about the Hungarian minority being called up into the Ukrainian army like everybody else in their desperation. They're running out of people now. So, yes, his latest visitor, only a few days ago, was Netanyahu. And where does he take him as a site? To the very spot that I was describing, where my school friend was shot into the Danube, when there is a permanent monument of shoes cast in bronze or iron laid out as it was in reality. It's a very effective monument in a way. And so his hosts took Netanyahu there, and later, I think only a couple of days ago, I think, Netanyahu used that image in a speech at Yad Vashem, once again, sickeningly exploiting that awful experience of the Holocaust for his current purposes. And I can't think of anything more awful. But there you are.
You know, Stefan, I don't know, you have a way. Every time I meet you, I get really amazing ideas. And it's the power of solidarity, I think. And I had a really terribly good idea, which is, guys, imagine if I do a TV show, like trying to like be, what is it called, impersonating? Yeah, like Netanyahu, Urban, you know, Trump, all of them in a party. Imagine, what do they talk about? Like, seriously, I'm so curious. So, when are we obliterating Gaza? Tomorrow, I actually have a date with Sarah, so I'm not doing it. This is Netanyahu. Maybe next week. And then Urban is like, no, the Syrians, I need to deal with them. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll pitch it to Al Jazeera. The next question was the hypocrisy and duality of Ukraine and Palestine. I remember when the first, like, Ukraine, when the first bombs were dropped on Ukraine and the whole thing. And I remember I felt I was in Ukraine. I was in the UK. But people here were so moved and were so appalled that it felt like we were part of Ukraine. We were supporting them. I remember even one of my close, powerful friends was visiting Ukraine and talking about it. And when Palestine happened, they couldn't do the same thing because they were scared of cutting funding, with no names mentioned. And it happens again and again and again. School kids are being persecuted for wearing a kufiya. You know, sometimes I actually get scared to wear a kufiya on the train. One of my close friends, he's Tunisian, bless him. He got hit in the face so badly, he had to have eye surgery in one of the protests. So yeah, it does come with a lot of fear, and it does come with a lot of risks to be advocating for Palestine. I lost a best friend. She didn't die. I just lost her. I decided to break up with her because she didn't post about what's happening in Palestine. I don't need people like this in my life. It is a risk. You know, you could get expelled. We know that SOAS hasn't been very great. I'm in their campus and I'm talking about them. Palestinians, you know, we don't have filters. But honestly, expelling students for just protesting a genocide, come on. Shame, honestly. Yeah, you could do so much better. You could just give them detention. I don't know. Write more articles about why you're supporting Palestine and make great academic like papers. I don't know. I need to talk to the dean. Add it to my agenda, please. So, you know, it's horrible what's happening. It's horrible, the weaponization of schools, of universities. It's not the first time that, you know, they shared something. I don't know if it was the UK government. I think it was. And it was the IHRA policy. Do you guys know about it?
Yeah.
Do you know? Exactly. But for what? For protecting Jewish rights. But what does that mean? I went to University of Edinburgh, and I remember one day I was in London having fun with my friends because someone should have fun, you know, whatever. And then I get a call from my friend saying this Israeli soldier, an ex-soldier, used to probably killed many Palestinians. Maybe he's the reason why I lived through that massacre in Gaza. He was coming to the University of Edinburgh to do what, you might ask? Not to study, because why? Why would you study if you could kill people? Why? No, he came to teach Krav Maga. Do you know what's that? It's a form of martial arts that was developed by the Israeli army to kill Palestinians. It's not a martial art for self-defense. Usually you do jiu-jitsu to self-defend yourself, you know? No, it's to kill Palestinians and torture them. The moment you stop is when he is no longer breathing. And I've seen videos of them posting about it, the Krav Maga. So this guy has the audacity to come to my university under my watch and come teach Krav Maga. Guys, I will never forget his picture. He looked like crazy guy. Wallahi, I don't know what kind of protein powder he was using. But he was coming to teach this violent thing on my campus, let alone he's an ex-IDF soldier. And long story short, this guy when he came, and I'm talking about this because I'm telling you about the power of institutions, educational institutions, and the power they hold in upholding genocide or, you know, being against it. And this guy was coming, I knew 3 days before he came, probably he was in London as well, booked his flights, everything. This guy, no names mentioned, I don't remember his name to be honest, but he was in my uni and he put it as part of the Jewish society. He was smart, but I was smarter. And he did, it was a Jewish identity seminar to teach Krav Maga. How insane does that sound? And my Jewish friends were appalled because he could do it under the Israeli society, but then they wouldn't approve it. And the university approved it, and they didn't even, wallahi, she didn't know what Krav Maga was, because when I talked to her, she was like, isn't that some like cooking class? And I was like, no, honey, not really. And I tried my best to get it cancelled, but do you know how much power I hold as a student? Nothing. They could expel me. They don't need me. There's hundreds of thousands of students. And I was scared of doing that. I was the founder of the Palestine Justice for Palestine Society at then, and I tried my best to cancel this event, and I did everything. I emailed the principal, I emailed the teachers, I emailed the students, I emailed the student association. I did everything, and they weren't canceling it. And this man was coming, and probably if he saw me or I went to the Krav Maga class, maybe he would have killed me, and he would have not even been persecuted, you know? And he killed so many Palestinians. I am sure of it. Not a single soldier served and didn't do some really questionable humanitarian violation things. So what do I do? My friends are all lawyers. Amazing, amazing, Yara. So I think sneaky, like they did. And I emailed the principal saying, Yara Eid is suing the university, and I'm suing it for 50 million pounds. Why? I still have that email. Because it's a sanctuary university for students, refugee students. I'm a refugee when I want to be. I am actually, but... And then the university replied to me immediately, 50 million pounds, what? They cancelled it. He did eventually come to Edinburgh. I think he went to Harriet Watt, but who cares about Harriet Watt? Like, I don't go there. So he never went to my university. He didn't do it. So you have power. If I was, I don't know, 20 years old and I managed to get this, like, I don't know, 6'5" maybe guy, IDF soldier who probably was going to teach hate, honestly, teach hate to university students, you could do. You have so much power. I genuinely think, as a human, you have so much power. Imagine if you were born a dog. Not a lot of power, no. So, you know, Ukraine, Palestine, it's hypocrisy. It keeps happening. And if there is another war in the Middle East, it will be exactly the same. It's not even like special about Palestine. Maybe extra special because of the genocide and the whole Israel thing, but did we ever hear about Syria as much as we heard about Ukraine? No. Is what's happening in Ukraine horrible? Yes. Do I condemn it? Yes. Is Russia a war criminal? Yes. Do we need to talk about Palestine and Ukraine? Yes. Easy equation. 1 + 1 is 2. Quick math, guys. So, yeah. Last question was from that lady over there. Yes, and the ICJ ruling and how people perceived it in Gaza. Do you know, Stefan? Have you watched people, how they received the ICJ ruling in Gaza?
Well, I know how they received it here in the UK.
How?
Which is ignoring it by a lot. Yes, Keir Starmer had this observation that we cannot use, I think he said it in Parliament, that he was not using the word genocide because he's a human rights lawyer and he represented some country, I think Croatia, during the wars in the ex-Yugoslavia area.
So Keir Starmer is also a lawyer, like David Lammy.
Yes.
I learned so much tonight. I'm a lawyer, guys.
And he said that this is a difficult and a sort of legal process which takes time, and it hasn't yet run its course. He implied, he didn't say that quite in those ways. He said, I'm not using the term genocide because of that. Well, that we know that the courts, even the international courts, which are in this case correctly inclined in the right direction, to come to the final conclusion take years. And if you can only talk about genocide when the ruling comes out, it means that any genocide in the process cannot be stopped. You cannot act until the court comes out a few years later. They said, yes, now you can talk about it, now that it's over. And it's an absurd position, basically.
Definitely. And I think they use it again.
Yeah.
They pretend they're lawyers to lecture us about what a genocide is. I think one video coming from Gaza, if you watch it and you have this amount of a heart, you'll know that it is a genocide. And I hate the words. I hate genocide, war, assault, aggression. What are they doing? Killing babies. Actually beheading babies, not the rumors they've spread on October 7th that have been proven wrong till now.
Yeah.
No proof whatsoever. Honestly, Israel is like your really salty ex who just creates so many. Thank you for laughing at my jokes. I love you. Honestly, like your salty ex who just creates these like fake scenarios. Oh yeah, when I was with her, I took her in a helicopter and we went to Eiffel Tower. No, you didn't. You took me to Nando's, mate. You know? And Israel does exactly that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about the ICJ ruling in Gaza, I think people were happy. And I remember I didn't know that ruling, or I did, but I didn't know what the time was, like when they're gonna say it. And I remember having my family group chat, just like it flooded with messages. So most of the family I lost was from my dad's side. So I no longer have, like, maybe I have one uncle left. Not maybe, I do have one uncle left. But from my mom's side, they're alive, alhamdulillah, till now. And we have a group chat, and I had so many messages. I thought Gaza was free, khalas, you know, what is happening? And then it was the ICJ ruling. So people were in the streets dancing, screaming, like honestly, so happy about what happened. And if you ask any Gazan about South Africa, oh my God, they worship it. Like they love it so much because we felt the level of solidarity. And this is what I want to end on. You know, people loved it. I hope I answered your question, but this is what I want to end on. I hope that you go home, and it's not a responsibility that we invoked in you. It's a responsibility that you were born with. We just reminded you of it, you know? I genuinely think that people do not know. It's not that people do not care. And this is why I choose to be a journalist. And this is why I'm sure Stefan chooses to be an activist and a campaigner for human rights and peace. And no peace without justice. But anyway, I think this is the point of sessions like these, is that you go home and you think, what can I, a 24-year-old student from North London, what can I do to help Palestine? Trust me, the world is your limit. You can do so much. You can wear your kufiya every single day so I don't feel unsafe in the tube. And everyone will see you wearing it and will ask, what is that? And then you tell them about the fishnets and you tell them about the olive. You can get Palestinian olive oil and support Palestinian businesses. You can take a history course. You can go to Akub or Shakshuka in London or Hiba and eat Palestinian food and talk about it to your friends. You can date a Palestinian. Guys, cut this part. So you can make Palestinian babies. Yes, honestly, yes, go like interracial love, you know, and then because we need more people and more people to be on our side. And I'm sorry if I offended anyone by my humor, but this is how I deal with life. Otherwise, I will go crazy. I will end up weeping. And I had that last year. I'm sure you saw videos of me ugly crying, guys. Delete it off the internet. But I think humor is much better, at least for now. It's helping. But yeah, you can do so much. You can think about what we're talking about. Read books. Read Susanna Bulhawa. Read Ghassan Kanafani. It's been translated, mate. What is your excuse? Read Mus'ab Abu Toha. I'm not going to say donate. You can, the donation that you could do could you probably know someone from Gaza who you could help in a different way. Like my friend helped me move 25 boxes. Insane, but you know, this is a way of supporting Palestinians, showing them love, showing them support. You're not alone in this country. I don't know, tutor a Gazan child, teach him English so he can become a Yara Eid, you know. It's just so much you could do. Write articles. Don't give up. SOAS expelled you. So what? We go to UCL, huh? UCL expels you. So what? I study at Al Azhar University in Gaza, huh? Like, it's so many things. And I swear, I didn't even prepare this. I came up with this on the spot. I'm sure you're more creative than me and you can come up with new ways to help Palestine. And I love how people are incorporating like fashion as form of resistance. I see people wearing the kufiya in different colors, in different forms. I see people like, I don't know, I saw once an Irish man with a huge Palestine tattoo on his heart. I almost had a heart attack. I was like, mate, is that real? And he's like, yes, I love Palestine. I was like, amazing. You love it. Great. I was shocked. You would be surprised the things people would do for Palestine. But this is the kind of thing we need to keep going, to keep living, to keep having babies. I don't know. So yeah, and I want to leave the floor now to Stefan to say, what kind of solidarity do you think, in your opinion, is the most not helpful or meaningful? Maybe meaningful, yeah. With Palestine, with the Holocaust survivors, with Ukraine, with any human rights issue, but mostly with Palestine, because, you know, yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, just keep on marching. That every Saturday.
He's always there.
Yeah, and you can. Some people ask, well, what have you achieved with doing all that? You had so many marches, and they're still bombing, etc.
Yeah.
But I think it does have a cumulative effect and a pressure on the governments, and they do realize that the public is against them. Why else would they try to suppress it? And I think we just have to resist and never allow to slip into the sort of state that, say, Germany is in, where you cannot show a Palestinian flag, where the police is completely brutal in beating even the demonstrators. And I think we have to be careful not to have a direction like in Germany and the US even. And I think that's something that we can do by ever increasing the numbers rather than reducing in these big demonstrations. You know, talk to people who have not yet been and explain how important it is and how in future all the indifference or that the mass media shows towards the suffering that is going on. There will be a day of reckoning, and history will condemn those who turned the other way at a critical moment, like it was with the Holocaust. And I think this is the moment when you have to really assert yourself. And I just want to say also about how amazed I am about the heroism of the Palestinian people as a people in general. Every one of them who are staying on in the face of this brutal assault and resisting any suggestion of leaving Palestine. They are an absolutely heroic people, every one of them who stay.
So are you.
And I think that Yara here is a special hero as well.
Oh. Thank you, guys. And as Stefan said, going to the protest. The first time I went there and I saw millions of people marching, wallahi, I was crying the whole day, tears of happiness. It was so special, and people were welcoming me with flags, flowers, cookies that have Palestine on them. I never had one of those. And like just being so supportive. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. And I swear, I wish every single one of them, 2 million people, even the ones who were killed, I wish I could take them and hug them and bring them here and show them those protests, show them the woman who came and hugged me crying just because of what she's watching, show them Stefan. Alone, oh my God, you would love Gaza. They would, you would be like the uncle. We would all come to you for advice. And oh my, we have to do that trip.
I will.
Yes, hopefully. Thank you guys. You're amazing. Thank you for being here.